Hello and welcome to another Standard Games video, the official MTG Arena channel. Today we're taking a look at an updated version of mono-red Burn, featuring a lot of cards from Wilds of Eldraine. Now there's a lot of different ways to approach a red aggro deck in Standard nowadays. This build focuses on a Virtue of Courage. First we can use the 2-mana instant speed adventure, Embereth Blaze, dealing a 2 damage to any target, and then later we can cast a Virtue of Courage, a 5-mana enchantment, saying whenever a source we control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, we may exile that many cards from the top of our library, and we may play those cards this turn. So now our burn spells also turn into sources of card advantage, and we can try to string together a whole bunch of burn spells in the same turn to try and close out the game. Now, of course, casting a 5-mana enchantment in a low-curve red aggro deck is not that easy, so to make up for it, we are playing 24 lands total, which also gives us access to 4 copies of Mishra's Foundry as a powerful creature land that can also help deal a few extra points of damage. And then we also have 8 ways to generate treasure, and those include Charming Scoundrel, a 2-mana 1/1 with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, we either discard a card and then draw a card, especially useful if we just need to hit additional land drops, and if a treasure token is not enough, because that's also an option, we can just create a treasure token to maybe cast a turn 4 Virtue of Courage after casting the adventure first, ideally. And then we can also potentially create a Wicked Roll token attached to target creature we control, so that will give it +1/+1, and when this aura is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So sometimes we just play Scoundrel as a 2/2 that can get in for a bit of damage, and then when the opponent eventually deals with a Scoundrel, it can still deal 1 damage on the way out, but sometimes we do prefer generating that treasure token if we're working up towards a Virtue of Courage, because the sooner we get it in play, the better. And then we also have 4 copies of Flick a Coin, 3-mana, instant, deals 1 damage to any target, we create a treasure token, and we draw a card. So it replaces itself while helping us ramp, so we can maybe cast a turn 2 Embereth Blaze, taking out an opposing creature, turn 3 Flick a Coin, and then turn 4 cast a Virtue of Courage already, and then all our burn spells will be enhanced. And another way to enhance our burn spells is with Mechanized Warfare, 3-mana enchantment, saying if a red or artifact source we control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. So now our Flick a Coin deals 2 damage with a single Mechanized Warfare in play, and of course the more of these we get in play the better, because they will all add up. And then End of Festivities is also quite powerful with our Mechanized Warfare, dealing 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control, so it can potentially turn into a one-sided board wipe while still triggering our Virtue of Courage to dig towards more burn spells. And then our other creatures include Kumano faces Kakazan, which can eventually transform into Etching of Kumano. When the enchantment enters the battlefield, it also damages the opponent, so that can also enable our Virtue of Courage, and also benefits from a Mechanized Warfare in play. Even though we don't have a lot of creatures to benefit from the second chapter, our deck is pretty creature light, with only Kumano eventually transforming into Etching as a 2/2 with haste, and then 4 copies of Scoundrel, 4 copies of Swiftspear, still also too good to pass up, as we have a ton of different ways to enable prowess in this deck, with both halves of Virtue of Courage enabling prowess for us. And then of course we also have Mishra's Foundry that can help close out the game, but that's not going to benefit from Chapter 2, but Kumano is still too good to pass up alongside our Swiftspear here. The advantage of not having a lot of creatures is that we're less susceptible to removal spells, so if we face one of those black mid-range decks that rely on a lot of cheap spot removal, we can potentially beat them just by resolving some of our enchantments and stringing together enough burn spells. And speaking of burn spells, we also have 4 copies of Play with Fire, dealing 2 damage to any target, potentially letting us scry 1 if we target the opponent, so that can also be nice in combination with a Virtue of Courage to give us more card selection. And then Lightning Strike, dealing 3 damage to any target, also an instant. So plenty of burn spells to synergize with our Mechanized Warfare, and to exile additional cards with a Virtue of Courage. And then our mana base also includes 1 Crucible of Defiance to make 2 hasty 1/1s. Sadly, these aren't artifacts, so they don't synergize with Warfare, but at least our artifact land, Mishra's Foundry, can also deal additional damage with the enchantment on the battlefield. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump in some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand seems fine. And the Festivities pairs well with our Mechanized Warfare. We've got double Virtue of Courage, so if we can get to 5 mana, that would be great. Yeah, let's just answer Hexmage 1 for 1 in case they can remove the cursed roll. They might have threatened a 4/3 creature on turn 2. Opponent's got another Hexmage. That one we can maybe take out, dealing 2 damage, but we can wait and see what they do. Opponent's just gonna hit for 1, I'll take it. not in a hurry. And Underdog is next, so we'll take that out. And then play Mechanized Warfare. And then we're getting closer to 5 mana. If our opponent does replace the Cursed roll with a Wicked roll, it's still within range of a 3 damage Virtue of Courage. Opponent's gonna make us discard. Maybe a second Warfare is greedy, although double Warfare plus End of Festivities next turn could deal 3 damage to everything. That is tempting. I'll ditch a Virtue of Courage. And then I guess I'll just play another Warfare and pass. Can hang on to Kumano until after we deploy Virtue of Courage. Although Kumano for 3 damage is somewhat tempting. Just mostly worried about them making me discard with another Hopeless Nightmare. Sure, let's get this going. And then hope for an untapped land, which I guess is all our lands, to play Virtue of Courage. And then End of Festivities will help us string together more burn spells. Found another Virtue of Courage. Attacking with Foundry, probably not a great idea. So yeah, I'll just pass a turn. Maybe point this upstairs to deal 4 damage. Opponent's gonna sacrifice to Scry 2. Next turn we will get the Etching of Kumano, so that's likely eating a removal spell. Another Hopeless Nightmare, alright. So what do I get rid of? Probably another Virtue of Courage, keep End of Festivities. Although at this point, opponent's not playing multiple creatures, possible that Virtue is still better. Still not enough to kill a Shieldred by itself with double Warfare out. I think I keep End of Festivities. It's not going to be very good if our opponent plays a third Hopeless Nightmare, because I wouldn't be able to play it at instant speed. But I still have hope. So our opponent attacking into a potential Mishra's Foundry definitely implies that they have removal here. But we found our 5th land, so I can deploy Virtue of Courage. I'm sure opponent takes out Etching here. But then End of Festivities can get the party started. Red-Black is not known for its answers to enchantments, so just gotta hope they don't have another discard spell. Opponent blitzing Underdog, get in for 4. But now we can take care of the Hex Mage. Don't want to play land yet in case we find another one in exile. And there's a land, flick a coin, so I can flick a coin and then still Virtue of Courage. Maybe shouldn't have played land yet in case I find another Mishra's Foundry. But yeah, that's enough. 3 more damage, 3 more cards exiled, find a couple more burn spells, and there we have it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is lacking our Virtue of Courage. And yeah, just triple Scoundrel, hope to just curve out and beat the opponent down. Although on the draw, Scoundrels may be less likely to connect, especially the second copy. I think it's still good enough to keep. Opponent's green-white. Play with Fire is a good draw. Can enable Prowess on the Swift Spear, maybe clear a scary creature. And for now, Scoundrel can put a Wicked roll on itself if it resolves. It does not. So hopefully Warfare does next turn. A Wedding Announcement, fair enough. So yeah, let's go for Warfare. Next turn we can double Scoundrel. And then an End of Festivities could be quite good in this matchup if it clears a bunch of tokens. Opponent playing Boseiju could have been used to blow up our Warfare as well. And a Jace, okay. Just a 3-mana Jace. Can shrink down Swift Spear. And make a token another Warfare. Okay, I think it's still a double Scoundrel turn. And then 2 Wicked Roll tokens. And then I don't think Swiftspear is dealing any damage. So might as well keep it back. Opponent can jump to save Jace. Goes down to 1 loyalty. And 3 blind mice can eventually copy a token. For now it's just a 1/1. Another play with fire. Okay, so sadly our opponent can still trade for our 2/2 Scoundrels with their tokens, but we'll get to deal a bit of damage on the way out with a Wicked Roll. If we clear all the opponent's creatures, then 3 blind mice doesn't do anything. So yeah, this seems fine. Could also kill Jace instead. But clearing their only token seems better. Could wait until upkeep. So that way we pump Swiftspear. Probably doesn't matter. Small chance our opponent's got a pump spell here. But otherwise they might have activated Mirax to copy that token instead. Now that was a 4 damage play with fire, so we were pretty close to just ending the game. But this seems fine. Another wedding announcement. And another Swiftspear. So we could play Swiftspear and animate Mishra's Foundry. And then... do I go face or do I kill Jace is the question. Opponent still has 2 mana on tap, so they could have another counterspell too here. Swiftspear resolves. So yeah, send both at Jace. Does seem reasonable. If our opponent's got an instant speed token maker, that would be a little awkward. But let's try it. Be a fateful absence killing Swiftspear. Alright, at least the 3 blind mice once again don't have anything to copy. And Jace still within range of our play with fire. Another Swiftspear. Okay, play Swiftspear. Swiftspear can go face. While play with fire deals with Jace. Be a soul partition on their own Jace here. Fair enough, so they can replay it. Opponent does now have double blue, so they can play it for 4 mana. Depopulate wipes the board. That's a setback. Opponent gets 1 last token, and the festivities can actually clear the human. This also damages planeswalkers, so probably worth keeping. And just draw with a clue right now. There's Jace again. Hope they minus. So now end the festivities can clear Jace and their token, while also dealing 3 to the opponents. And then now Lightning Strike's just 5 damage, so that's game. Wow. Double Mechanized Warfare, putting in some work here. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand is pretty one-dimensional. Triple play with fire and the festivities. No other pressure really, other than my creature land. And no enchantments. I think that's a mulligan. Alright, this I can keep. And the festivities, the most conditional of these cards. At least Kumano helps us pressure the opponent early on. And then Flick a Coin ramps out our 5 mana Virtue of Courage. So this is a pretty nice curve. So we'd love for the opponent to present a target for our 2-mana Blaze, and that'll do. Need a 4th land so we can flick a coin into Virtue of Courage, and there we have it. So all lined up, and then Play with Fire can kind of kickstart our Virtue of Courage to find more burn spells. It's gonna be a Trespasser. Can exile their own underdog, but I doubt it. So I'll just go upstairs. Opponent did decide to exile underdog after all, just wanting to gain as much life as possible. Okay, so play Virtue of Courage, and then I can maybe even upkeep Play with Fire if I'd like. Opponent's got 4 mana, which is Shieldred territory. So hopefully we can dodge the Phyrexian, but there it is. Okay, so now what? If I damage the Shieldred, I wouldn't be able to generate card advantage with Virtue of Courage, but maybe that's okay. So I think the move here is attack with Etching. Could also play Swift Spear. Alright, let's try that. Play Swift Spear, and then I can still flick a coin and Play with Fire, which could kill Shieldred. Opponent's gonna take it. So in that case, just flick a coin face. Hope to exile something useful. Draw End of Festivities. And exile Mountain. I've already played land for a turn. Alright, I don't think we do anything else right now. Just pass a turn. And then hope to go big next turn. Finding a Mechanized Warfare would go a long way. Then End of Festivities and Play with Fire can combine to take out Shieldred. They're gonna hang back with a Trespasser. And play another one. Okay. Could also Play with Fire end of turn, but then the exiled cards won't persist throughout my next turn. So at best I upkeep Play with Fire, but I feel like I just need to get lucky and top deck a Mechanized Warfare. And I can still potentially find it with a Virtue of Courage. Found a land. Okay, so now what? Maybe start with an End of Festivities. And there's Mechanized Warfare. Now it's one draw step too late, potentially, since I wouldn't be able to finish off Shieldred now. But if I play Warfare, and then Play with Fire digs 3 cards deep, for opponents blocks both of my creatures, which at this point they're likely to do, then Shieldred still kills me, unless I find a Lightning Strike with a Play with Fire, which is still a possibility. Let's give it a shot. Opponent's just gonna take it. Alright, then we're going upstairs. And there's a Lightning Strike, although I hadn't played land yet, but that's not gonna matter. Play land afterwards, Lightning Strike face. And that's how you beat a Shieldred. Sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and I like this hand. Kumano, double Virtue of Courage. Wouldn't mind something to generate a treasure token, or just more lands to get us to 5 mana. Scoundrel would be especially nice, picking up the +1 counter and potentially making a treasure. Don't think I'm scrying an upkeep with Play with Fire, but you never know. Found a land. So just play a land and pass. And then end of turn, just fire off a Virtue of Courage. Find a Lightning Strike. And Etching gets to hit for 2. Do want to keep some burn spells to play after Virtue of Courage, although I might fire off a Play with Fire just for the scry. Faithful Mending can gain the opponent some life back, so they might be on a Reanimator combo deck. Discarding the Mindbreaker, so yep, opponent's gonna try and mill us to death. Revelry can gain them some life back. At least they won't be drawing a card, but still 2 1/1s and 4 life. Unless I want to Lightning Strike myself, in which case the opponent doesn't gain any life. I guess it's kind of like Lightning Strike deals 4 damage to the opponent. Yeah, that might be worth it. And then do I still want to play with fire to scry here? Might want to keep it to kill a token if they double block. Okay, Mechanized Warfare is nice. So now they're even more incentivized to block my etching. Although now Play with Fire deals 3 damage. So it's also nice to point upstairs, but yeah, I think saving etching is worth it. Opponent does go for the double block. Alright, land 5 would be lovely. Then we can play Virtue of Courage and have a second one to find more burn. Just a tap land for the opponent, so at the very least they can flashback Mending, but they had a second Revelry, and thanks to that Pain land going to 16, they actually managed to gain 4. Alright, just gonna attack. Kind of played back, similar to last turn. Kill one of the tokens. I think I hang on to the second Virtue of Courage. Opponent can unearth Mindbreaker, mill half my library, and then Jace can potentially close it out. Yep, there's Jace. Can shrink down my etching, which is what they'll do. Found a Mishra's Foundry, that's a good one. Play Virtue of Courage. So Mindbreaker can mill 24 cards, and then Jace can mill 18, so it's not quite enough. But now, of course, our Virtue of Courage doesn't look as good when we don't have many cards left in library. So 6 cards remaining. Scoundrel the draw. So just go for Scoundrel, activate Mishra's Foundry. Hope they don't have another Jace. Depopulate wipes the board, 1 more damage from the Wicked roll, and flick a coin the draw. So we can pretty much deduce what's left in our deck. So we would still need to hit some haste creatures or burn spells here, but yeah, I think we'll give that a go. Draw lands. Don't have to exile cards either. Play land from exile. And then we want to keep the instant speed burn to maybe play in our upkeep. So even if we're empty, we can still maybe cast a lethal burn spell. So end the festivities. With only 1 card left, probably best to decline. Opponent's at 3, and yeah, this upkeep Virtue of Courage could be the decider if our opponent doesn't gain life. They didn't mill us, so cast End the Festivities for 2 damage, attack with Mishra's Foundry, and then still have a Virtue of Courage. So this Mishra's Foundry is lethal if our opponent has a 1-mana answer and can gain 3 more life. That would do it. Wandering Emperor, so in response 3 damage to the face. And that's game. Awesome, very close one here against a blue-white control mill deck. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand. Missing our Virtue of Courage. To go with our Flick a Coin to maybe ramp it out. Gonna hang on to Play with Fire for one more turn, but now I probably want to scry to a third land if possible. Opponent's blue-black, could be fairies. So end the festivities, especially with a Mechanized Warfare in play, could be effective. Scoundrel isn't bad. If our opponent's got a Fairy Vandal, they could ambush a 1/1 Scoundrel, but I guess we'll also get the +1 counter from Kumano. So don't even have to go for the Wicked roll. But they might just have a Spell Stutter. Alright. Counter my Scoundrel. And then a third land would be appreciated. At least we've got Etching next turn to keep up the pressure. Opponent main-facing Mastermind. So now it's vulnerable to end the festivities, although I kind of want to play Mechanized Warfare first and then just pass. Flick a Coin also an answer to the Mastermind. Don't want to trade when we can clear Mastermind for free, essentially, with end of festivities. Kaito, okay, now they can enable Kaito with the Mastermind.
Fix everything. We can. Thanks. I'll be taking that now.
Mastermind can punish Flick a Coin if we cast it in our turn. Although, let's see. Can just attack with Mishra's Foundry, get some damage in, wait for Kaito to phase back in before casting End the Festivities. Or I can Flick a Coin during the opponent's turn, maybe killing Mastermind. And then if they counter it, the coast is clear for End the Festivities. Although they would get to draw another card with Kaito. Tricky spot. Definitely attacking here with Etching. And then I think we'll pass. Opponent playing Obira main phase. That resolves. So maybe power up a Spell Stutter. So Flick a Coin will get countered most likely. But then End the Festivities should resolve. No, that works. So Kaito is not drawing any extra cards for free. Hope they make a ninja, but I doubt it. Okay, opponent does actually make a ninja. So now this End of Festivities is going to line up beautifully. And since we have a backup, I'm not too concerned about a potential Spell Stutter. One-sided board wipe, including their Planeswalker. Awesome. And then I could still animate Foundry, but let's just keep up our instant speed interaction in case they flash in a blocker. Alright, go for the throat. In that case, I'll animate Foundry. Don't really need our treasures since we don't have a Virtue of Courage in exile. And that's 6 damage, so now we can maybe close out the game with our burn spells. I'll put an upkeep stop on the off chance that I want to scry before drawing. Can also exile the Dream Thief with Etching in play, so they can't exile it from the graveyard. Ego Drain can check out our hand. Takes End of Festivities, so the game's not over yet. Do I want to upkeep Play with Fire? If our opponent's got a Spell Stutter, then I can pay for it. And I would like to improve my draw step. It's going to be another Fairy Mastermind instead. So now we just need a burn spell to win the game. I'll land. Well, we can still animate Foundry, and then our opponent will be forced to chump with the Dream Thief and lose Mastermind. Dream Thief will get exiled. So we're definitely in a favorable position here. The Fairy deck is not known for gaining a lot of life. And almost every burn spell is lethal. Another Warfare, not so much. So I could animate Foundry, hoping that they don't have another flash creature. Go for the throat, at least doesn't answer Foundry since it's an artifact. Or I can play another Warfare, and then even a 1 damage. And the Festivities would be lethal. Although we've seen a couple of them already. Yeah, I guess it's fine to play Warfare here. If it baits out a Spell Stutter, I'm happy, but they don't really have a reason to counter it here. Opponent does have another Prankster that can find another fairy. And they found a good one, Talion. The Kindly Lord. Opponent's gonna tap out for it, so the coast is clear. If we draw a Burn Spell, we win the game. Opponent names 1. Pretty good choice, I would say. Alright, so animate Foundry, and then now they'll have to trade for Talion. Or they could jump with a Prankster, I suppose. And then any reason to play lands, opponent could have an Ego Drain, so I'll keep it in hand. Reason to play it is if we flick a coin into something else needing the extra mana, but seems unlikely. Okay, there's a Swift Spear. So if I play land, I can pay for Spell Stutter, and Swift Spear does take out a Prankster with double Warfare in play. Opponent's got a Fairy Fencing as their last card. So yeah, no counter spells to worry about, not the fastest clock from double Prankster. So I still like my spot, just need to find a burn spell at some point. And that might do it. Would also kill double Prankster. And there we have it. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, hand seems fine. Turn 1, a Generous Visitor. So it is tempting to just end the festivities right now. I do have a Warfare, so that can maybe still deal 2 damage to everything later, and Virtue of Courage can also just take out a 2/2 Visitor next turn. So I think I'm still going to be patient here. Get in for 1. Hope to draw a few lands, since we will like to get up to 5 mana. And nothing from the opponent so far. This happens on cast. So Scoundrel could also discard and draw, since I would like to hit my land drops. As opposed to just taking out the Visitor right now. And then maybe 1 Virtue of Courage has to go. Keep Mechanized Warfare to combine with End of Festivities. And since we need to get up to 5 mana eventually, I don't think making a treasure is good enough. Another Warfare, not quite what I needed. So a Mountain next turn would still be pretty good. Then we'll have to consider whether we play Warfare or fire off some burn. Flick a coin. Yeah, not quite. So we could now Virtue of Courage, kill Kami, still get an attack in. Even though they can likely get it back from the graveyard later. If we get enough damage in with our creatures, we can try and close out the game with our burn spells. But a Naturalist as a 2/2 lifelink is kind of a must answer. So, we have a couple of options. Mechanized Warfare is not a bad one. Allows me to attack with both Swift Spear and Scoundrel. Then next turn our opponent's likely pumping the Naturalist, but we can hope to still kill it between our End of Festivities and Virtue of Courage, which will be enhanced by the Warfare. Or we can just take out Naturalist now, because our opponent's struggling with their mana. The only problem is that I don't get to double spell very effectively. Could flick a coin, and then still End of Festivities to finish it off. And that would allow Scoundrel to attack. But playing Warfare first seems more effective. So I think I'll take the risk here. Hope they just play some small creatures that we can clean up with End of Festivities. And then maybe save the treasure to cast Virtue of Courage if the game's not over yet. Now this deals 2 damage. So that could also line up a bit better. Flick a coin, End of Festivities can deal 4 damage to a single creature. And 2 to the rest. Okay, Companion we don't mind. Counter on Naturalist makes sense. And just take 3. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So now could even go second Warfare plus End of Festivities. And that's probably game over here. Opponent's at 1, but don't think they're coming back from this. Opponent finally finds their third land. Plays another Naturalist. And a Reign of Truth, but can just burn them out. Flick a coin, pretty funny way to end the game here. And could have cast another Lightning Strike as well. So yeah, we got pretty lucky that our opponent stumbled with our lands a little bit. Otherwise, a Naturalist pumped up by Reign of Truth can be a deadly combination against a red deck. But still good to see the power of Mechanized Warfare alongside End of Festivities, but also our Virtue of Courage, giving us a way to potentially outgrind some of those black mid-range decks, packing Shieldred, which can be pretty tough for red decks to deal with. So now at least we can fuel additional burn spells with our Virtue of Courage, and hopefully still win the game. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.